The Great Ruler Episode 131 Explanation. The sudden indolent voice made the expression on Mu Chen's face freeze, and after a brief moment, he recovered from the shock and muttered with disbelief, "You? 9 Nether? You've woken up?" However, his question wasn't replied, which made Mu Chen's heart cold in an instant. Was he hallucinating? "Ha ha, looks like you missed me a lot." However, just when Mu Chen's heart was about to thoroughly turn cold, teasing laughter rang out again. Mu Chen's expression hung for a moment, before he helplessly rolled his eyes. However, he still felt a heavy relief. This fellow has finally woken up after being asleep for 2 years. "You're finally awake." Mu Chen bitterly smiled in his heart. "Can't help it, you're about to die, and I don't want to die together with you without even enjoying a day after evolving." 9 Nether laughed. Mu Chen pulled his lips. His relationship with the 9 Nether was very complicated as the both of them had undergone the blood-linked bond. Thus, speaking to a certain extent, they both had a very close relationship. Even when the 9 Nether was in deep slumber this whole time, the relationship between the two became even closer due to the link of their bloodline. "Looks like you've encountered quite the trouble." 9 Nether lightly smiled. Although it was a conversation in the heart, Mu Chen was able to sense a scene flashing through his heart. It seems to be a broken black egg with a girl dressed in black seated on top of it. She was shaking her pair of long and slender legs as she put a fragment of the egg shield into her rosy lips and crunched on it with her silver teeth, chewing it bit by bit with an intoxicated expression on her wild and beautiful face. "It's just a primordial sky dragon hawk. Its strength should have reached the 4th grade sovereign." Mu Chen nodded his head as he inquired with a soft voice, "Can you deal with it?" 9 Nether had her hand on her cheeks as she spoke lazily. "It's just a mixed chicken that can never evolve, relying on its long lifespan to achieve the sovereign realm. But a spiritual beast is still a spiritual beast in the end. Without being able to undergo evolution, its path stops here." "Then, what grade of sovereign are you?" Mu Chen spoke with cautiousness. It should also be at the 4th grade." 9 Nether spoke with a sweet smile. 4th grade sovereign." Mu Chen inhaled a mouthful of chilled air as he was startled in his heart. The primordial sky dragon hawk had cultivated for a long time and was only at the 4th grade sovereign, but the 9 Nether slept for 2 years and had already achieved such heights. He still clearly remembered that before the 9 Nether underwent her evolution, her strength was on par with him. "I'm the most talented in the 9 Netherbird clan in the past 1,000 years with the purest bloodline. Don't compare that mixed chicken with me." 9 Nether indolently replied. As there wasn't nothing surprising for her and instead, it should be a natural thing. Mu Chen was speechless. If she had spoken such words, who knows how many self-proclaimed geniuses would spurt blood out. "That fellow is also 4th grade, can you deal with it?" Mu Chen questioned. "Under the same cultivation, divine beast suppresses spiritual beasts." 9 Nether said with indifference. "Formidable." Mu Chen praised. "I will temporarily lend you my strength, but it will depend on you to see how much you can hold." 9 Nether swallowed the last fragment of eggshell and lightly patted her hands. She formed seals with both of her hands and an earth-shattering amount of purple flames gushed out, along with dreadful spiritual energy ripples, and exploded. In the collapsed battle stage, there wasn't any movement on Mu Chen's body as he froze while conversing with 9 Nether in his heart. "Looks like he's beginning to give up." Up in midair, Ji Xian slightly slanted his head as he looked at Mu Chen, who had a miserable appearance, and smiled. "Since that's the case, then I'll let you feel the true meaning of despair. Your so-called confidence will cease to exist from today on." As he finished his speech, Ji Xian's gaze became savage and cruel as he strode forth. In the next instant, his figure had mysteriously appeared before Mu Chen. He had a light smile as he tore through space and pointed at Mu Chen's heart along with unparalleled sharpness of his fingers and purple light. One finger of malice. Outside the battle stage, innumerable students couldn't bear shifting their gazes. The expressions of the students of Northern Heaven's Spiritual Academy turned pale. "It all ends now." Ji Xian let out savage laughter as the purple light turned even more radiant on his 2 fingers, with a gale that shrouded his fingers that could tear through any obstacles. A gale swept out as it fell towards Mu Chen's chest at speed as swift as lightning. TSK. A faint sound suddenly rang out, and those that had their gazes fixed on the battle stage suddenly narrowed. Ji Xian's cruel expression underwent a drastic change as he raised his head in disbelief. He saw Mu Chen extending two fingers out that clamped onto his. Although that pincer attack looked weak, Ji Xian's offense was unable to advance a single inch. How is that possible? A cry of astonishment rang out. Ji Xian's heart trembled as he looked at the youth that was in a miserable state before him in disbelief. At this moment, the latter had also slowly raised his head as his black pupils seemed to have purple flames gushing out. Your complacency ends here. The corner of the youth's lips rose up along with his hoarse voice. In the next instant, he whipped his leg. It was like a heavy hammer with a speed that not even Ji Xian could react to, and heavily landed on his chest. Boom! A solemn sound rang out, and Ji Xian's body was like a cannonball as he flew out, drawing large and deep marks along the floor that were a few 100 feet in length. Those rocks that he slammed into along the way were reduced to dust. The entire field went silent. Innumerable people had their mouths widen as they froze, witnessing that scene. Luo Li and Wen Qingxian, who were about to attack, dazed off as well, looking at Ji Xian instantly flying back with astonishment. They had still not recovered from the sudden change of events. Outside the battle stage, Ling Shi narrowed both her eyes as she stared at Mu Chen. A smear of astonishment flashed across her face as she seems to have sensed something. Poof! Ji Xian stabilized his body as he spurted a mouthful of blood. His gaze was a little dazed as he stared at Mu Chen. However, that only lasted for a brief instant, before he recovered from the daze and howled with disbelief. How is that possible? Mu Chen raised his head as he looked at Ji Xian, whose eyes were reddened with indifference. He did not even pay any attention to him and slowly opened his arms. After that, everyone witnessed the scene of a giant purple pillar of flames gushing from his body and soared into the horizon. The blazing temperature instantly spread out in this region. Even the foothold beneath Mu Chen's feet started to melt. The overbearing purple flames were inexpressible. Furthermore, along with the purple flames gushing out, everyone sensed the spiritual energy ripples emitting from Mu Chen becoming more and more terrifying. They had already reached the sovereign realm level in just a few breaths' time. Innumerable students were once again overwhelmed with shock. Up in midair, the deans of the various academies had astonished expressions as well. Their gazes started to turn heavy as they could feel Mu Chen's spiritual energy ripples that were probably comparable to a second-grade sovereign realm. Compared to Ji Xian, who was barely first-grade sovereign, it was way stronger. This Mu Chen had actually concealed a similar trump card. Several deans bitterly smiled as they looked at each other. This was the peak-level students of the 5 great academies? They truly were formidable, so much so that even they felt threatened by it. Among the 5 great deans, Dean Taikan was also startled by the scene, but he soon recovered. An ecstasy surged from his cold expression, whereas Dean Tianchen, who was smiling earlier, had a dark expression on his face at this moment. Purple flames swept, and purple wings also appeared behind Mu Chen that were slowly unfolding. His pair of black pupils had turned purple at this moment, and vaguely, there was a bright and crisp cry that resonated between the heavens and earth. The power of a sovereign. Mu Chen slowly clenched his fist as he couldn't help being intoxicated as he sensed the fearsome energy in his body. Right now, he could probably destroy this entire land with a single wave of his hand. This power was definitely not something that the spirit disaster could be compared to. You actually managed to hold so much power. Looks like your physical body is pretty strong now. Nether's astonished voice rang out in Mu Chen's heart. She initially expected that the first-grade sovereign realm was Mu Chen's limit, but she never thought that he would be able to hold up to the second-grade sovereign realm. I have not spent 2 years doing nothing. Mu Chen smiled. You're indeed more powerful compared to before. Nether did not disagree as, right now, Mu Chen was indeed much more powerful compared to before. At the very least, he could not follow her footsteps and not only in sight but be unattainable like before. Mu Chen lightly laughed as he raised his head. His pupils were blazing with purple flames as he looked at the ashen Ji Xian. Shortly after, he abruptly stomped his feet on the ground. purple flames wreaked havoc as it spread out and his figure disappeared in an instant. When he disappeared, his indifferent voice swept out along with purple flames. "Let's end this battle." Ji Xian abruptly narrowed his eyes as he hastily retreated. Poof! A hand shrouded in purple flames pierced through space, as if it was extending from the void and grabbed onto his neck. The gap between them was evident. When Mu Chen's hand grabbed onto Ji Xian's throat like an eagle, it was this instant that many people still had their eyes on the location that Mu Chen was previously at, and it was a flash before they widened their eyes and saw this frightening scene. Mu Chen stood as he grabbed Ji Xian's throat and lifted him up. Ji Xian, who was an irresistible force earlier, was currently in his hand like a child without any ability to fight back. It was so much so that he was a little helpless in this difficult situation. The entire area was in silence. No one spoke as they were too overwhelmed by shock to the point that they could not talk. Who could have imagined the situation flipping around in an instant? Initially, when Ji Xian had Mu Chen thoroughly suppressed, he was still proud for a few minutes, before he was crushed by his opponent. Mu Chen's counterattack was clearly more direct and efficient. However, what made everyone feel astonished was the fact that Mu Chen's strength had reached such a terrifying height to the point that it far surpassed Ji Xian, who had borrowed the power of the primordial Sky Dragon Hawk. Just what was going on? Under the countless gazes of astonishment, Ji Xian's face was turning red as he violently struggled. Dense humiliation and ferocity were revealed in his eyes. Their current position nearly made his abdomen explode from all the anger. All these years, he had been proceeding forth and surpassing those in the same generation as him. He had enjoyed the countless gazes of respect, and in the past, he was the only one that stomped his opponent beneath his feet and never imagined that there would be a day for him to be in such a sorry-looking state. This was definitely not something that Ji Xian, whose pride was imprinted down to his bones, could endure. In his point of view, this was even more torturing than him being killed. "I'll shred you to pieces." Ji Xian roared as vast spiritual energy swept out like a gale. It was like an enraged dragon as it flew towards Mu Chen. Naturally, Mu Chen only swept a gaze of indifference to his attack and flicked his fingers. Purple flames gushed out and swept through the vast spiritual energy. In that instant of contact, the purple flames had already extinguished it. Rustle. Ji Xian's sharp fingers shot towards Mu Chen's eyes in a ruthless arc. Boom! However, before his strike could even land, Mu Chen's palm had already slammed onto his chest. A deep and muffled sound rang out. Ji Xian's chest seemed to have collapsed a little, from the looks of it, along with a mouthful of blood that spewed from his mouth, as he flew back again. Boom! When Ji Xian was still in midair, Mu Chen's ghostly figure had appeared before him. He had an icy expression and threw a punch forth with purple flames on his fist. That high temperature even caused the surrounding space to intensely distort. When Mu Chen's fist ruthlessly fell onto Ji Xian's body, the high temperature wreaked havoc. The latter's body turned red in an instant, as if he was about to combust into flames. Poof! Another mouthful of fresh blood spewed out as Ji Xian's body was shot into the crumbled battle stage and laid there. His entire body was covered in fresh blood, and his appearance, which was initially handsome, became extraordinarily twisted and terrifying. He fixed his eyes at Mu Chen, who was up in midair. His gaze was so vicious, it was as if he wanted to devour him. His body trembled as he muttered, "How is that possible? How could he possess such powerful strength?" The victory was already in his grasp, but who could have expected for such an unexpected event to occur? That power doesn't belong to him, and in addition, his physical body is much stronger than you, thus he could hold more power compared to you as well. An eerie voice resounded in Ji Xian's heart, "Even if you have borrowed my strength, you're only barely at first-grade sovereign, whereas he possesses the strength of second-grade sovereign. So it was natural for you not being able to fight with him." "I want to kill him, I want to kill him." Ji Xian's eyes turned red. "Sure, let me control your body and killing him would be as simple as flipping my hand." That eerie voice laughed with a scheming tone. Ji Xian clenched his teeth. If it were some other time, he would definitely not agree to such a matter with his thinking. But when he saw the indifferent Mu Chen in midair, the resentment violently gushed out of his heart and consumed his mind. He should be the one enjoying the claps from everyone and not lying here like a dead dog. There's no way in hell I can lose to Mu Chen. He had declared that he will definitely step on him beneath his feet. Kill him for me. Ji Xian trembled with vicious in his tone. Ha ha, as you wish. That eerie voice's laughter roared. Ji Xian slowly shut his eyes. The blood flowing out of his body stopped, his spiritual energy, which was in disorder a while ago, calmed down and gradually stabilized. After that, his shut eyes slowly opened. There wasn't any more of that viciousness and twistedness from before, but it was replaced with eeriness. He slowly stood up and cracked his neck, felt the unfamiliar body and laughed. Finally, I'm in control of this body. He raised his head as he looked at Mu Chen and smiled. I really have to thank you for that. Mu Chen knitted his brows as he looked at Ji Xian. Although there weren't any powerful ripples around the latter, the gaze that he gave made Mu Chen feel danger. At this moment, Ji Xian felt unfamiliar, utterly different from what he was before. You're the primordial Sky Dragon Hawk, right? Mu Chen spoke with no rush. You're pretty smart. Ji Xian faintly smiled and did not deny Mu Chen's words as he smiled, but I've promised him to kill you, so I have to make you suffer a little. Boom! As his words finished, Mu Chen had already thrown a palm forth with purple flames sweeping out. It was like a giant palm of purple flames that suppressed towards Ji Xian. You only have some strength belonging to a sovereign, you're still too far away from a real sovereign. Looking at Mu Chen's attacks, Ji Xian slightly smiled as he flipped his hand over and pushed out. His palm lightly clashed with the purple flames. Although it looked like a completely different level of collision, the instant those two forces came into contact, the flaming palm crumbled. Everyone around the battle stage was looking at this scene, but they were numbed by it. This battle of ups and downs had already far surpassed their understandings. Mu Chen's figure rapidly retreated as his face was filled with graveness. The current Ji Xian was entirely different from before. Not only his strength, but his control over it was on a wholly new level. Clearly, the other party was a real sovereign. You can't run. The space behind Mu Chen suddenly distorted as Ji Xian's figure appeared with a flash and let out a faint smile. I'll let you experience what a real sovereign is. He bent both his fingers and pointed down. Along with it, dark purple spiritual energy swept out. That spiritual energy was filled with a cold aura. Not only was it more refined, it was also filled with spirituality. Regarding quality, this spiritual energy had far surpassed those that Ji Xian had used before. Sword form. As the dark purple spiritual energy shot forth, it had turned into a corporeal form of a giant dark purple sword, tearing apart space and shot towards Mu Chen's head with incredible speed. Mu Chen's figure hastily retreated as his hand seals changed and vast spiritual energy shot forth. Boom! Boom! However, in the path of the giant sword, every obstacle was destroyed. The way it swept through everything instilled astonishment in the hearts of others. Mu Chen's face uncontrollably changed as well. The scale of that giant sword wasn't terrifying, but it possessed such a powerful pressure that even he was under that pressure and couldn't move his body. Rustle. In the next instant, every single attack crumbled and the giant sword had also appeared before Mu Chen. However, right before that large sword was about to slice downwards, a slender and fair hand suddenly appeared behind him and with a light flick, purple flames swept out and reduced that large sword to dust. Ji Xian abruptly narrowed his eyes as he shifted his cold gaze towards Mu Chen's rear. Every single gaze in this region shifted and was a little stunned when they saw an elegant silhouette behind Mu Chen. At this instant, even when everyone was a bit numb to the changes, they felt a series of shock. Who is that? Under the countless astonished gazes, that silhouette was becoming more evident, taking a form of a girl dressed in black clothes. She had a tall and elegant appearance. As she looked around with her charming eyes, there was a trace of wildness which revealed her stubbornness. Her waist was so slim that it could be barely grabbed a hold of, especially that pair of long legs that was just perfect. The sight of her made others feel an itch in their hearts. When that clothed black girl appeared, a clear commotion resounded between the heavens and earth as everyone saw the rolling purple flames behind her. Vaguely, a colossal image appeared. It was a blackbird that was flapping its wings and issued a cry that resonated throughout the heavens and earth. That's the Nine Nether bird. Up in midair, several deans revealed shock on their faces as they muttered. So it was another real body, so it turns out that Mu Chen also has a powerful spiritual beast in his body. Youths nowadays are truly formidable. But does that mean that it's also a lodging relationship between Mu Chen and that Nine Nether bird? Not far away, Luo Li and Wen Qingxian were a little astonished as they looked at the unfamiliar beauty. Who is she? Why haven't I seen her before? Could it be that Mu Chen is cheating behind you? Wen Qingxian shot a glance at Nine Nether. The latter had an impressive appearance and temperament, even the latter's long legs made her feel shocked. But, naturally, the most unique part was still her eyes, which were filled with wildness. Luo Li pondered for a brief moment, before softly saying, I'm afraid she's the Nine Nether bird. She and Mu Chen have a blood-link bond relationship. It's just that she has been in a deep slumber all these years. Blood-link bond? Wen Qingxian was startled and muttered softly after, with the pride of such a powerful spiritual beast like the Nine Nether bird, how could it conduct a blood-link bond with a human? What did that fellow Mu Chen do to her? Up in midair, Nine Nether did not pay any attention to the others upon appearing as she cast a glance at Ji Xian and said, originally, I didn't want to bother with you. But a mixed chicken like you is taking things too far. Since you like to put a hand in the battle of others, then let me accompany you with that. So you're from the Nine Nether bird clan. Ji Xian's gaze was dark as he looked at Nine Nether and sneered, according to the lifespan of the Nine Nether birds clan, you're still not at your matured stage, right? Yet you dare to challenge me. In the spiritual beast records, the primordial sky dragon hawk's ranking was higher than the Nine Nether bird. Thus, the primordial sky dragon hawk wasn't afraid of Nine Nether's appearance. Don't believe that trash record too much. As if she knew what the primordial sky dragon hawk was thinking, she cast her rosy lips aside and converged flames on her fingertips. She then tilted her head and looked at Ji Xian with a mocking gaze. Furthermore, I am not a Nine Nether bird right now, but... Nine Nether's gaze, which was filled with wildness, blazed with purple flames. At the same time, an indescribable pressure swept from her body that spread between the heavens and earth. In an instant, the colors of the earth and sky changed. Nine Nether world bird. It was a genuine divine beast pressure. Boom! Nine Nether stood in the air as a surge of fearsome pressure enveloped out. The earth and sky seemed to have darkened by a lot, even the spiritual energy between the heavens and earth became violent. Under that pressure, the faces of everyone changed, including the various deans that were watching the battle from high above. The calm expressions on their faces grew heavy as their gazes had a little astonishment when they looked at that slender, long-legged girl clothed in black. It's actually the Nine Netherworld bird. This girl is indeed formidable to have completed her evolution at such a young age. This sort of talent is simply terrifying. A Nine Netherworld bird of the 4th grade sovereign, truly powerful. The 5 great deans were also watching this scene before them. Dean Chensheng of the Saint Spiritual Academy had no expression on his face, but his hands that were placed on the armrest uncontrollably clenched. Whereas Dean Taikang also had astonishment in his eyes, but soon changed to unrestrainable pleasant surprise as he muttered to himself, the cards that this fellow has hidden are truly astonishing. When the expression of everyone in this region changed, the primordial sky dragon hawk, who was occupying Ji Xian's body at this moment, was looking at Nine Nether in shock as he spoke with a hoarse voice, You've completed your evolution. The primordial sky dragon hawk's voice was filled with unconcealable jealousy. Shredding spirituality and forming divinity was something that every single spiritual beast wished for. In the path of a spiritual beast's cultivation, evolution was a shortcut. Even the spiritual beasts with the most common bloodline could evolve. Furthermore, in the Great Thousand World, there wasn't a lack of common spiritual beasts that had broken through their limits through evolutions and became a well-famed existence in the Great Thousand World. Although the primordial sky dragon hawk didn't have an ordinary bloodline, it wasn't an easy task for it to evolve. Even when Nine Nether tried to evolve, she had failed several times before being able to find that trace of opportunity to complete her evolution. The difficulty in it was something that others wouldn't know about. The primordial sky dragon hawk had also attempted it, but all of it ended up in failure till now. He tried to get through the lightning tribulations but always ended up in terrible failure. He was nearly even reduced to ashes by the lightning tribulation. Fortunately, he had preparations beforehand and thus, he was able to keep his life. However, he never dared to attempt the lightning tribulation with lingering fear in his heart, since the tribulation would get stronger based on the strength of the person undergoing it as well. This was a point that no one could provide any help with, it could only be passed through by their own strength. Thus, when the primordial sky dragon hawk saw Nether succeeding her evolution, he had a trace of jealousy gushing from his heart. In the Nether bird clan, the latter's age had yet to reach maturity, but the achievement that she had accomplished far surpassed his. He could sense the pressure emitting from Nether, that pressure even made him tremble a little as the pressure originated from his bloodline. In the world of spiritual beasts, divine beasts held the highest existence. If I were you, I would run away immediately, as far as possible. Nether swept a glance at the primordial sky dragon hawk as she slowly spoke out. She was like a queen that was overlooking her subject from high above. The primordial sky dragon hawk had his eyes fixed on Nether as his eyes continually flickered with ferocious scarlet light. Although he was continuously being suppressed by that pressure, he was in existence with the bloodline of the dragon clan. Thus, he also possessed the pride of a dragon deep down in his bones. Retreating without a fight was something that he could never do. Although the other party had successfully evolved, her strength was comparable to his, and if they fought, she might not be able to get any advantage from their battle. After all, in his view, Nether before him was too tender, whereas he had undergone numerous battles of life and death. This daddy has seen all sorts of wind and waves in his life. It's not something a little brat like you could compare to. I'm afraid a junior like you still don't have the qualifications to make me flee from a single bark. The primordial sky dragon hawk spoke without any hurry as the ferocity in his eyes became incredibly dense. If you want to fight here, I believe the results will not be what you want. Along with the eerie voice of the primordial sky dragon hawk, purple light gushed behind him as a massive figure appeared. It was the real body of the primordial sky dragon hawk. Torrential spiritual energy fluctuations wreaked havoc that trembled the earth and sky. Sky dragon roar. The primordial sky dragon hawk ferociously opened its mouth, causing the earth and sky to darken in an instant. Its huge mouth was like a wind tunnel as a dreadful ocean of spiritual energy swept out, turning into the roar of a dragon that resonated and shook the earth and sky. That roar instantly turned corporeal as rolls of sound waves turned into a roaring sky dragon. The sky dragon had a powerful figure that far surpassed the size of the real body of the primordial sky dragon hawk, and an indescribable dragon pressure spread out as it clashed against the pressure of a divine beast being emitted by Nether. This sound wave of sky dragon possessed the real strength of a sky dragon. It was natural for this primordial sky dragon hawk to have a few cards up his sleeves, since he didn't fear Nether. Also, he showed no leniency the moment he attacked, since he knew that the Nether before him was already in the rankings of divine beasts. It was an opponent that he could not afford to look down on in the slightest. The entire earth and sky trembled along with the dragon roar. The sky dragon converged as its massive figure whipped, tearing the space as it headed towards Nether. Based on that commotion, even the heavens and earth seemed to have shattered. Nether's gaze was cold as she looked at the whistling sound wave of the sky dragon. Her figure moved and reappeared on the head of the massive Netherworld bird and stomped her feet down. A crisp and sharp cry rang out that instantly resonated between the heavens and earth. The Netherworld bird opened its mouth as a purple flaming sea swept out, engulfing everything in all directions. Nether lightly inhaled with her rosy lips and devoured the purple flames, then spat it out again. A strand of flames that was faintly flickering with purple and gold turned into a line of fire as it shot forth. That golden-purple flame streaked across the horizon, instantly crumbling the space, and a dreadful high temperature blazed this region. Even the spiritual energy was boiling. Undying flames. A soft roar came from Nether as it resonated. Lee. A long clear cry became increasingly brilliant as the golden-purple flames formed into the foot of a flaming bird, flapping its wings as it flashed, streaking across the horizon. Under the innumerable gazes, it clashed head-to-head with the few thousand-foot sky dragon image. Before that massive image of the sky dragon, the flaming bird that was emitting golden-purple flames was as small as an ant in comparison. However, the results of this unequaled confrontation made everyone overwhelmed with shock. In the instant of the clash, the flaming bird turned into a ray of flame, and it was like a hot knife through butter, piercing through the defense and the massive body of the sky dragon in an instant. Golden-purple flames spread out from the massive image of sky dragon. Those horrifying flames instantly engulfed the massive figure and made it combust without a single remnant. A clear and sharp cry rang out from the primordial sky dragon hawk's mouth as he roared with rage, "Undying flames!" It was said that the undying flames were unique flames only possessed by the primordial undying bird. The possessor of this flame wouldn't die or be destroyed. It was a dream that countless experts yearned for, but the flames were extremely overbearing. If they weren't compatible, they would ignite the entire sovereign sea to nothing if one were to inhale a strand of them. The undying flames were only obtained through the evolution of divine beasts that possessed the purest bloodline of the undying bird. However, he never expected that Nether would actually possess such a divine flame. Nether maintained a calm expression as she extended her slender finger and pointed down. 10 golden-purple flames shot forth and overlapped. It was like a flaming hissing python as it shot towards the primordial sky dragon hawk, along with fluctuations that would even instill fear to various deans. When the primordial sky dragon hawk saw it, its massive figure rapidly retreated as it flapped its wings at the same time. Many purple-colored dragon scales flew out and formed into large dragon scale shields. Poof! The flaming pythons shot over as the flames shattered the dragon scale shields as if they were breaking bamboos and bombarded the massive figure of the primordial sky dragon hawk. Boom! Flesh and blood splattered from the massive figure of the primordial sky dragon hawk, falling into pieces, and was combusted to nothingness as a painful dragon roar resonated. Within that painful roar, there was a trace of terror. Although the Nether before him only possessed the strength of a 4th-grade sovereign, her combat ability was something that even he feared. The primordial sky dragon hawk's eyes flashed as he clenched his teeth. He was thinking of admitting defeat by controlling Ji Xian's body. He was smart and knew that this was a tournament. So as long as he admitted defeat, Nether and Mu Chen wouldn't dare to do anything to them. However, just when he was about to put his thought into action, Mu Chen, who had been observing the battle, had a chilling flash in his eyes. Ji Xian had excellent talent and was a deep schemer. In addition to the aid of the primordial sky dragon hawk in the dark, he would definitely have high achievements in the future. If he let go of this chance, he might leave behind a considerable seed in the future. Letting the tiger back to the mountain was something he was unwilling to do. Thus, Mu Chen suddenly raised his head, and his figure moved. He appeared on the body of the massive Netherworld bird and sat down with his eyes tightly shut. At the same time, the mysterious black paper in his aura sea quietly trembled. Nether, lend me your strength again. Mu Chen barked in his heart, and in a flash, torrential and endless energy flowed into him. The trembling of the mysterious black paper, which was the immortal page, became even more urgent as traces of purple runes quietly spread out and emitted radiant purple light. Mu Chen's shut eyes abruptly opened as both of his hands rapidly formed a peculiar seal, which was like a lotus flower. Purple light exploded in an earth-shattering manner and, in the next instant, everyone saw a dark purple mandala flower, which was extremely beautiful, appear between the heavens and earth. Immortal seal. Mu Chen's gaze was cold as he pointed down with his finger. The enormous purple mandala flower trembled and disappeared in the next instant. When it reappeared, it was already beneath the primordial sky dragon hawk. The expression of the primordial sky dragon hawk drastically changed as a smear of fear surged from its eyes. The petals of the bewitching mandala flower were swaying and slowly blossoming with purple luster, causing this space to be exceptionally distorted. Purple light lingered as it formed a light screen that enveloped the primordial sky dragon hawk. Dense fear surged from the primordial sky dragon hawk's ferocious eyes as that mysterious mandala flower made him feel a deadly threat. That pressure was even stronger than earlier when Nether appeared. Boom! He flapped his broad wings and heavily slammed against the purple light screen. The dreadful impact caused fluctuations on the purple light screen. Mu Chen's eyes were indifferent as he looked at the raging primordial sky dragon hawk as the lotus seal in his hand changed once again. TSK. TSK. Purple rays of light burst from the Mandala flower. The flower was formed with endless runes, making it seem profound, and the vines were covered in sharp spikes. Whoosh! Whoosh! The Mandala flower swept out from all directions as it tangled the body of the primordial sky dragon hawk at lightning speed. Lee! Along with the shrouding of the purple vines, the primordial sky dragon hawk unleashed a sharp cry. The terrifying ripples on its body were rapidly diminishing, and judging from the looks of it, it was actually being restrained at this moment. Nine Nether witnessed the scene as she flung the corner of her lips to the side. She knew exactly how great that mysterious Mandala flower was. Back then, when she was in Mu Chen's body, she suffered a massive loss from it. But the times have changed. With Mu Chen's strength, in addition to hers, it was possible to summon the real mysterious Mandala flower out. This time, the primordial sky dragon hawk had bumped into a hot iron plate. Boom! Boom! Violent spiritual energy ripples violently exploded, and the primordial sky dragon hawk had clearly sensed something was amiss as it violently struggled. However, no matter how it fought, it was unable to break free from the purple vines. Furthermore, the spikes on the vines pierced deeper into his body as he struggled, covering him in blood. Seal! Mu Chen's face was grave as he unleashed a bark, and his hand seals rapidly changed. TSK! TSK! Innumerable vines started to withdraw, along with the massive size of the primordial sky dragon hawk, into the center of the Mandala flower. Although that speed was slow, it was substantial, since it wasn't affected by the struggling primordial sky dragon hawk. When it was closing in on the mysterious Mandala flower, fear finally surged in the eyes of the primordial sky dragon hawk as he anxiously yelled, "I admit defeat. I will no longer put a hand into the matters between you and Ji Xian." Mu Chen's gaze was calm as he gently shook his head while looking at the primordial sky dragon hawk. It was a little late to admit defeat now. Furthermore, he wasn't someone who would be unnecessarily lenient at this crucial point in time. Thus, the speed of the purple vines increased, and finally, the massive size of the primordial sky dragon hawk was pulled into the center of the purple Mandala flower. In an instant, the bewitching petals folded up, bit by bit, into a flower bud, covering up the primordial sky dragon hawk. Profound purple runes appeared on the surface of the flower bud, as if it was a mysterious seal that had utterly sealed the aura of the primordial sky dragon hawk. Boom! Boom! Occasionally, there would be violent trembles coming from the flower bud. It was probably the primordial sky dragon hawk struggling within, but it wasn't able to break free. Innumerable people looked at the large bewitching flower bud, and their gazes were a little dazed. Who could have imagined that the mighty primordial sky dragon hawk from before would be subdued just like that? That was a powerful spiritual beast with the strength of 4th grade sovereign. Even the various deans seated up in midair might not have the confidence to thoroughly suppress it. However, such a young man had achieved that. Even with the composure of the deans up in the sky, they couldn't help going into silence at his moment as they exchanged looks. They were a little shocked in their hearts as they looked at the towering youth with complicated gazes. This boy is out of the ordinary. Under the innumerable gazes, Mu Chen made a gesture, causing the large flower bud to return, and it was devoured by the 9 Netherworld bird. With Mu Chen's strength, even if he could seal the primordial sky dragon hawk with the help of 9 Nether's power, it was impossible for him to thoroughly refine it. Thus, he needed 9 Nether to process this step. With 9 Nether's current strength and the might of the undying flames, it wasn't a difficult task for her to deal with the primordial sky dragon hawk. When 9 Nether devoured the flower bud, Ji Xian, who had his eyes shut, abruptly opened them. His face was pale, and a mouthful of fresh blood spewed out. His complexion was terrible, and his eyes were filled with shock. Although his body was controlled by the primordial sky dragon hawk earlier, he was able to witness what happened. Ji Xian's gaze stared at the indifferent Mu Chen with disbelief. He actually defeated even the primordial sky dragon hawk? Because of the lodging relationship between them, Ji Xian could sense that he had lost the connection with the primordial sky dragon hawk. Evidently, the latter was thoroughly trapped. How is that possible? Ji Xian's complexion was pale as he muttered to himself without any spirit. The splendor that he had earlier had thoroughly disappeared, even his gaze had darkened. I refuse to believe that I have failed. All those years, he had been the most outstanding amongst his generation, far surpassing those self-proclaimed geniuses behind him. Even the formidable opponent that he had once considered as his greatest enemy, Mu Chen, wasn't in his eyes when he felt that he had sufficient powerful trump cards to suppress anyone in the same generation. However, the results made him feel thunderstruck. He had revealed his trump cards again and again, but this youth before him could always thoroughly defeat him and flip the situation around. Unknowingly, this youth that he had schemed to expel from the spiritual road had, once again, surpassed him. He looked at the youth that was standing on top of the massive 9 Netherworld bird. The latter was emitting a radiating luster and, just like that, he had become the most dazzling existence in this region. Endless waves of envy and rage surged from Ji Xian's heart. That brilliance and honor should be mine. He felt unresigned. However, as he clenched his teeth, he suddenly felt a chill down his spine as he saw an eerie killing intent gushing within Mu Chen's indifferent eyes. Rustle. In the next instant, Mu Chen's figure had suddenly disappeared. Ji Xian felt his scalp numbing as his thoughts swiftly revolved in his heart. He knew what was Mu Chen trying to do. He was trying to cut the weeds and pull out the roots. I admit, Ji Xian clenched his teeth with a pale expression as he had ultimately decided to admit defeat. At this sort of time, if he had refused to accept defeat, with Mu Chen's personality, he would definitely not hesitate to kill him. Although admitting defeat would be a massive blow to his self-confidence, he was not a pedantic person. Losing face was better than losing his life. If he lost his face, he could get it back, but if he had lost his life, he would lose everything. He had confidence in himself. As long as I'm alive, the day will come where Mu Chen will regret it. However, because Mu Chen understood his opponent too well, and Ji Xian wasn't any weaker than him, he would definitely not give Ji Xian that chance. Before Ji Xian could yell out the last word, Mu Chen's figure had appeared before him, like a ghost. There wasn't any hesitation in him as he bent both of his fingers, forming into a sword as vast spiritual energy exploded without the slightest restraint. The gale was like a streak of light that pierced Ji Xian's chest at lightning speed. Poof! The finger pierced Ji Xian's chest as a bloody mist splashed out. His body flew back in an instant. There weren't any changes to Mu Chen's expression as he strode forth under everyone's attention as he threw a palm out filled with dense killing intent. Impudent! Up in midair, Saint Spiritual Academy's Dean Tiansheng roared with anger as he abruptly stood up. In an instant, the sky darkened as an indescribable pressure engulfed the area, instantly restricting Mu Chen's movements. HMPH. When the pressure engulfed Mu Chen, a cold snort resounded and dissipated that pressure. Dean Taikang abruptly stood up as he stared at Dean Tiansheng. There wasn't any expression written on Mu Chen's face as he did not stop his movement, regardless of the actions of the two influential figures. He seized the opportunity and slammed his palm against Ji Xian's body. Lightning surged in that palm as that energy became extremely overbearing. Boom! As the lightning bombarded him, Ji Xian's chest collapsed as he spewed a mouthful of blood, mixed together with his shattered internal organs. His figure shot out in a miserable state, but his eyes were still filled with endless viciousness. Whoosh! However, that viciousness of his only lasted for an instant, before it was replaced with fear as he saw the 9 Netherworld bird suddenly open its mouth as golden-purple flames swept out and engulfed him. A terrifying temperature wreaked havoc as Ji Xian's body was instantly reduced to ashes under the innumerable shocked gazes. Poof! Ashes drifted as a strand of undetectable light flew out. It was Ji Xian's sovereign sea. Even if his physical body was destroyed, his spirit was concealed in his sovereign sea. As long as his sovereign sea lived, he could still recreate his body with enough time. Whoosh! However, when that light shot out, another blow of purple flames descended from the sky, instantly lighting it on fire, and it exploded. In that instant, terrifying spiritual energy violently wreaked havoc. An anguished howl yelled out that resonated between the earth and sky. Impudent thing! Up in the sky, Din Qiansheng roared with anger and waved his hand. A current of spiritual energy was instantly formed as it charged into the destructive spiritual energy and grabbed onto that tiny light. The current protected that little bit of light and withdrew into Din Qiansheng's hand. He looked at that nearly illusionary light figure, which was Ji Xian's spirit. However, his spirit had suffered a substantial injury and would dissipate soon. This instantly made Din Qiansheng's face pale. Ji Xian's spirit was heavily wounded. It was already not possible for him to recover from such injuries. From today onwards, even if Ji Xian could still cultivate, it was tough for him to achieve anything. The two of you have quite the nerve. Din Qiansheng's face seemed like it was shrouded with rainstorm as he shot a dark glance at Mu Chen and the 9 Netherworld bird. The eeriness in his eyes instantly dropped the temperature in this region. This episode ends here. Thanks you for watching.